This is Life Transformation Radio. Prepare to engage. Seatbelt activated. Download initiated. Your quantum journey of transformation begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. Hi, I'm Rob Actis, best-selling author of The Law of Action, voice actor, business mindset coach, the podcast whisperer, and Mr. Action himself. Life Transformation Radio is heard in over 90 countries. Thank you for joining us from all around the world. Whether it's your first time joining us or you've been listening to Life Transformation Radio for some time, I want to personally thank you. Here at Life Transformation Radio, we are committed to share more about real life, love, the power of positivity, romance, and of course, laughter. We care about helping others find their internal drive and purpose. We celebrate life's challenges and overcoming them. On the show, my guests are amazing people who are forces for good in the world around them and live a life of transformation. My guest today, well, she does just that. Today, Deborah Bishop and I discuss a direct perspective on what creates stuckness for people. If you want to learn that love is the answer, peace the result, not leave the planet with the realization, I haven't done what I came here to do, and not take life too seriously, this is the show for you. Deborah Bishop is an energy practitioner, inspirational performance artist, speaker, podcaster. From an award-winning recording artist to being voted among the top 30 psychics globally, leading a ministry founded in creativity, Reverend Deborah lives to serve and bring a message of consciousness and stewardship to the planet through humor and music. Deborah, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm very excited to have you here. I got to tell you, when I saw that you were the top 30 psychics in the world, I'm like, okay, that's perfect. You have to be on the show. We were talking offline. I thought that was fantastic. How do they rate that? I don't know, but I just really love your energy, so I'm really super glad to have you here. So let's start things off. You're a psychic.
Yes.
When did that happen?
When I was born. I mean,
when did you know? Like, when did you know?
Like, really know?
I want to hear the story of transformation of like how you became aware of being a psychic.
Well, I'm really sincere. I mean, when I was born, I really remember being able to sense things and see things. And I felt like I could communicate with trees and animals long before I ever could communicate with people, and I could see things, and I didn't know what to call it. And I felt like I was an alien for many years because there was nobody in my world that related to anything the way that I did or saw it. So I conformed as much as I possibly could. And then I had private schooling, which of course is Catholic schooling for the most part. And so that was also like, very different, and it was actually not until I was a teenager, and I think I was 18, that I actually met somebody that was a psychic. And it was like a door opened in my world. I went, oh, that's what this is. Wow, I think I'm one of those. And just to put it in perspective, it wasn't that unusual for me as a kid. And this is going to sound kind of creepy, but it wasn't at all. It was not creepy. But it wouldn't be unusual for an adult to kind of come over and just talk to me. And they'd say something, or they'd share something, or they just would ask a question or something like that. And I would, talk to them for 5 minutes or something and just say whatever I said and nod at each other. They'd go away. And that wasn't unusual. Like, I just thought that was normal. So apparently, people would sort of seek me out and ask me stuff and then go away. And it was just like, okay, isn't that the way it is for everybody? I guess not. So when I was, like I said, I think it was 18, it could have been 17, but somewhere in there, when I finally met somebody else that could sort of put the dots together, that was my aha moment of like, oh, I think I'm that. Because I really had not addressed that before. It was not sort of part of my reality. I mean, it wasn't like I was born into a family of psychics or anything like that. But that was a great relief because it was the first time I really felt like I belonged here. I wasn't like,
Wow.
Transported. Well, maybe I was transported from someplace else, but, I felt like I actually was supposed to be here.
So what's the definition of psychic? What if I looked in the dictionary and I saw psychic, what would that be? Or what's your definition of psychic? What defines you as a psychic?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't, I would have to look in the dictionary myself because it's been a long time since I've looked at the traditional idea of what a psychic is.
Well, we won't be traditional. We'll just find out exactly what you define yourself as a psychic.
So me as a psychic, the way that I work is I ride what I call grid lines. And whether people know I'm a psychic or not, whether they're working with me for a whole other reason, I have this ability to go, everything's a grid. Energy is a grid on the planet. We're all connected by energy. So we have all these grid lines to consciousness, to our higher selves, etc., whichever way you'd like to refer to it. And I have an ability to ride that. So I can ride the grid line and go wherever that person is and connect to their grid line and in essence connect to their higher self and then be able to communicate to them everything that the higher self is communicating to me. So that's how I work. And what's interesting and unique about the way that I work is that, if somebody's trying to make a decision, I can basically travel those grid lines to see potential outcomes of that decision. So there might be 4 or 5 outcomes. One might be better than others, but there are definitely variables every time we're looking at a choice, every time we're looking to get information. And I am able to look at all those variables and just present them to my client. And that way they're able to make a fully informed decision. So my definition of being psychic is really helping somebody to understand what their answer is that they already actually know, but they don't know how to connect because it's always their higher self telling me.
Wow. Okay. So psychic, intuitive, is that one and the same or is that a different type?
It is one and the same. A lot of people are more comfortable with intuitive, though. So I use that languaging a lot more than I use psychic.
Okay.
Honestly, I've had clients that have worked with me for a chunk of time that didn't ever know me as a psychic or energy worker because that would have been a very uncomfortable thing for them. And it's only been in the last few years that I've kind of stepped back into the moniker of psychic and kind of claimed that. I sort of had a coming out at a networking, a business networking that I used to go to. And there was a challenge that anybody, hey, face your fears. And so I stood up and I had moved from LA to Nashville. I'm currently in Nashville. And I was concerned about being a psychic and channeling energy and I've done mediumship and all of that and going, what will they think about that in Nashville? And so I faced my fear and stood up in that group and I said, well, here's the deal. This is who I am.
And they love you, don't they? They love you.
And they did. Yeah. I got applause. So that was nice.
Awesome. So interesting fact about me is that I have publicly declared myself as an intuitive and I find it really interesting. In that I used to do a radio show with a psychic. So I was in radio for 15 years in San Diego. I did a radio show with a psychic and I would listen to her and I'm just like, yeah, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I just thought that was quite interesting. And then she told me a few things. Like one of them was, look, Rob, you need to get ready. You're going to have a giant influx of money coming into your life. And I'm like, yay. She goes, no. You need to build a foundation to handle this influx of money, this cash. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I was like, yeah. And I heard her other conversations with people and people really had great response to her on the radio. And so I'm like, I'm a super trusting soul and I'm kind of intuitive, didn't know it. And I just I believe people. I just from my core, from my heart. Mm-hmm. I don't believe people from a conscious level. I believe them from my being. And when I believe people from my head, I'm always wrong, like always wrong. So fast forward to that. And I'm like, okay. And I've always been open and I've been surrounded in San Diego with a lot of people who are light workers. I call them my butterflies. I mean, just a lot of light workers, very, just that's the kind of people that I hung around with, which I found fascinating because I was not actually that way. I just didn't know it. And then I had a couple near-death experiences. And then I had one about 6 years ago where I had a blood clot. And I was pretty close to dying. And I will tell you, man, my intuitiveness has skyrocketed where I can walk up to people that I don't know. And then all of a sudden it feels like someone's tapped me on the shoulder and I'm getting this, what's called a download. And I tell them stuff. And it blows my mind. I have no control over it. So I don't claim to be a psychic and I don't offer it to people, but it's quite fascinating. I've really helped people, even as close, one of my dearest friends. And it just blows my mind. And the reason I'm sharing this is I think there are people that really have preconceived notions about psychic and intuitive. Yes. And they're like, oh, they're the airy fairy people. Well, if people that follow this show will know that I'm pretty grounded and I'm pretty authentic and lay safe on the line. If I believe in something, I'm going to tell you. If I don't, I will also tell you that. And I had a situation where I was driving in a car with my very dear friend, Kinsey. And all of a sudden I don't remember driving and I was just driving. And all of a sudden I was communicating to her as her father and telling her stuff that she needed to hear. And I'm just telling you, I was extremely exhausted after that. And it really blew my mind. But I think this is all fascinating. And I also believe that so many more people are intuitive than they know they're intuitive or will admit to it.
Absolutely. And it's a level of their ability to trust themselves and listen to themselves. So if there's a difference in sort of the idea of psychic or intuition, I think far more people are more tapped into their intuition than they would even know. Because the ability to be intuitive and then to be psychic is really the difference of knowing for yourself and maybe knowing for someone else. And really, you don't know anything for anybody else because we live in a free will universe. So you can give them all sorts of information and they can decide, I don't want that, which makes it very valuable. That, by the way, is probably one of the greatest reasons to consult with somebody like that or like me or a psychic or whatever, is to be able to know, hey, if what I'm walking into what I really want to walk into. Because we live in this beautiful free will universe, so we can actually say no to the things that we don't want to have in our life. However, the intuition is that inner knowing that we actually have, like, this is a yes, or this is a no, or this is good, or this is bad. And we actually all have that. It's an incredible muscle that we're born with. I call it the emotional guidance system. And the problem with it, for the most part, is nobody's ever taught how to, turn it on. In fact, we're taught the opposite of how to disregard and disconnect and how to be intellectual and how to be mental. We're taught how to be mental and really overthink and get into the world that way. And so we're leading with our heads and we're not listening to our hearts. And really our brain synapse runs all the way from, the back of the brain right down to the top of the belly. Our synapse runs all the way through our heart channel, through our intuitive, which is our solar plexus, right down to the top of the belly. So trusting your gut is actually really, really great advice. It's just people don't always listen to that.
Yeah, when I trust my head and my logical side, it's mostly wrong. When I trust my heart and what I feel, even though it's logically not correct, I'm right. It's so funny. It's very interesting. And like I said, when I had, it is the downloads and the information that I get and my intuitiveness has so massively increased since my final near-death experience. It's been amazing. And I've talked to other people on podcasts and in other arenas, and they have said the same thing. And they've had very near-death or traumatic experiences. And all of a sudden this opens up for them. And it's somewhat, I'm not scared of it at all, but some people have really freaked out about it. And I think it's really a gift. I think it's something that you should embrace and really just take heed that, you have this gift. It's truly incredible to be able to have words come out of your mouth for someone that you don't know that will have an impact on their life in a positive way. Most of what comes out of my mouth is messages from people that need to hear that there's people on the other side that care about them, that are looking after them, and that they're on the right path. I've never seen in the future, or I've never like,
so, that's
seen an option like it.
Right. That's being a medium. That's actually when you connect to people who's crossed over. What you just talked about, when you're getting messages from people on the other side. Yeah.
It's very interesting. I have no control over it. It's quite fascinating. It's quite fascinating. I definitely feel it's a gift, and the impact that I've had on people's lives has been truly remarkable, and really taken them in a direction that they didn't know they were going, because they now know that, like, oh, I am doing right. I am doing this. And it's been very fascinating. So, we talk about medium and psychic and intuitive, and, what I find, and I think you do as well, is it's very peaceful to be very present with your core, with your being. And the one thing that I think people have a hard time right now during this pandemic is to be peaceful. So what are some ways that people can find peace in all the morass of nonsense and craziness that's going on out there?
The out there. That's a huge question, by the way.
Okay, not that far out there. Well, it's funny because
I meant
here's
just the whole thing of finding peace.
Here's the funny thing. I mean, this whole show has taken a direction that I didn't know it was going to go, but I just trust the universe. And it's so funny because on my bingo card for 2021, alien invasion. That's on my bingo card. And then I just saw the news today. That we need to take this serious. I'm like, whoa.
The Pentagon has admitted that, there is such a thing as UFOs. Now, who knows at the end of the day, in my opinion, I've always known that we're not alone in the universe. And I believe the reason that we haven't found life on other planets, so to speak, is that we have a dimensional existence going on. And, if you don't travel in on the right dimension or through the right portal, you're not going to see what is not meant for you to see. So that's the way that I feel about all of that. And after going there, I'm like, I have no idea what the question was.
Peace, it's fine. Peace. It's all about peace.
Finding peace in all of this.
Yes.
Well, first and foremost, I think that the best thing people can do to actually find peace within themselves amidst all of the crazy is to breathe, like really, truly breathe. Like actually use your lungs that go down to the bottom of your lungs and your belly and your back, and take a good deep breath in and blow it out and just let go and feel your body. I think number one thing I do for clients is actually help them to get back into their bodies. Most people are in their minds and they're living out in the ethers. They're not really in their physical body. And that's a great avoidance tactic. It's a great way not to feel pain, but it's also a great way not to actually feel joy. And it's a great way to manifest castles in the sky, so to speak, but to never actually have a real life here on Earth. Because if you're manifesting it out there somewhere in the ethers, well, it's all showing up out there in the ethers. You got to be present and in your body. So when I say breathe, that's part of what I'm talking about, is like to get present to feeling the breath go in your body and to just blow out and release tension and shake your hands out and feel your feet on the ground and just get present into the moment. Pay attention to your surroundings for a second and just be in that breath and in that moment. It sounds so simple, and it's actually quite challenging to do because the mind is so used to racing and there's 9,000 other places you need to be. So that's a very simple exercise that the more that you do it, and I say take 10 breaths, get real present to your room, look around, see things as if you're looking at them for the first time, feel your feet on the ground. That's probably the most important step. And just be in the moment and shake everything else off. Because what it will do is it'll kind of reset your nervous system. And that's the best way you can connect to being the best possible version of peace you can be in that moment. The next thing is to recognize that so much of what we're experiencing is an illusion, just so much of it. And I don't mean that in any strange etheric way either. What I mean is that, we're following media, we're following all these stories that are being told to us by script writers and storytellers who look good and are on camera. And we think that, there's all this research going on. And really the truth is that these are the stories that are being perpetuated to serve whatever greater agenda is going on. And none of us really know. None of us really know the truth. Somewhere in the middle of everything, there's a thread of truth somewhere. So that said, if we don't really know, then we can kind of make up whatever we want. And there's something that's really important to understand about that. Because if the story you're telling yourself is making you really chaotic, then that's the story to stop telling. You have the right and the freedom to tell yourself a different story. And yeah, that's not necessarily what you see people doing around you, but just because other people doing around you don't necessarily know to do this does not mean that it's not actually a really great thing for you to do. You can lead by example by actually doing that and becoming more of a beacon of possibility in your life. So those are two things I know that will help. Another one is, take a break from your screens. Take a break from all the social media. Take a break from all the traditional media. I don't follow traditional media at all. That said, I know a lot of people who, it's like they're mainlining it. It's just not making them happy because that's not what it's designed to do. So we have to get very real with what we are in charge of and be in charge of that. Create the best case scenario for yourself in any given and every opportunity that you can, and just continue to reset back to that best case scenario. And the more that you do that, the more that best case scenario will slowly start to sneak in until you kind of go, whoa, wait a minute, what happened? How did I get here? And you're like, well, this is actually better. This is cool. And that's a great place to be. And so, those are some tips. It can be really hard to be peaceful in a noisy world. So sometimes you just have to learn how to turn the volume down, literally, and be okay with being by yourself and with your own thoughts. I don't know how many people don't do that at all anymore. They are constantly engaged in something. And that's one of the most disruptive things.
Meditate. I breathe and I meditate. I think it's so important. I mean, I move very, very fast. I take a lot of action as Mr. Action. And I also take time to breathe, and I do self-care, and I have that general conversation all the time. And I think, the other thing is, what the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Absolutely.
I hear birds in the background with you. And I believe that now the masks are over and people are getting out and people have been locked down. I think there's going to be a lot of coupling going on right about now. People are really ready to get a partner. A lot of people have spent a lot of time alone, and I think it's time. And I think that love is the answer. And I think that it's so important to know that we're going to be okay. I really believe this is like the rise of the phoenix. I think it's all crashing down. It's rising back up. I've been positive this whole time, and I know people around me have been positive. And I really believe, from what I've seen, especially people I've had on the show, is the light workers, there's been a lot of positive energy going on. Things, no matter, there's a lot of negative energy, but they've been busy. So what's your take on that?
I believe, things have I've heard people say so often lately, oh, we're getting back to normal. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but we're in a new normal. And whatever that is, it's going to continue to change. So I think that the world is evolving, and it's really important to understand that that's what we're in. We're in a process of evolution, regardless of how it may look on the surface. We are evolving. Right. The planet itself is evolving. People forget we live on a living entity. This is a being that I call Mother Gaia, Earth. She is a living, breathing entity in her own right. And so we're going through this incredible shift We've had dimensional shifts. We still experience sort of 3-dimensional reality, but the 5th dimension is most definitely here, which is why a lot of the veils are lifting. I think that's probably why there's a bit of a move in the direction of, well, we can't really hide the fact that there's other things out there, so we better cop to it now, because the veils are getting thinner and thinner. And the most important thing to realize, I think, in all of this is, yes, love is absolutely the answer. Love of the self first, because most people have a lot of work to do around their own self-love and self-acceptance and forgiveness. If one doesn't feel good about themselves or is trying to hide the fact that they think something about them is damaged or broken or wrong, then they're immediately cut off from having full access to really connecting to another person. And then you get into this really wonderful dysfunctional reality where it's like, okay, I've met you, you've met me. So I'll tell you what, I will tell you what an amazing human being you are and how awesome you are and how much I love you. And you do the same for me and we'll be okay. And that works great until one day it's like, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like telling you you're great. You pissed me off. I don't want to talk to you. And then all of a sudden the other person's, how dare you? Well, you're not going to make me feel better. I'm not going to make you feel better. And now we've got major dysfunction and breakups and divorces and all sorts because we weren't whole to begin with. And as long as you're looking to fill yourself up with someone else, then, that's not really love. That's something else. So the idea of love of self has to come first. And when I talk of stewardship, that's what I mean, is when we learn to love each other, learn to be great stewards of ourselves, then we can be stewards of each other. Then we can take care of each other. Then we can maybe meet on the road and say, hey, I'm a whole healed person. How about you? Yeah, I am too. Awesome. Let's go be whole and healed together. Like, how amazing would that be? And then you get to be stewards of all life because you care. You care enough that you realize that all life actually matters. And, that's the four-leggeds and the swimmers and the ones that fly and even the insects, for goodness sakes, the ecosystems out there are so incredibly magical and miraculous. And, I think we deserve to come to a place of reawakening to that magic. Technology is a wonderful, amazing tool. I mean, look at what we're doing right now. This is technology. This is awesome. It is not, however, a replacement for every other experience out there. There's an amazing world in that you can touch and taste. It's not virtual. It's real. And it's right outside your door. So I think learning that love and appreciation of the miracles that are happening every day around us is also part of that love and solution. And then also, Rob, to further comments on that, part of the reality of love is also an incredible responsibility. With love comes tolerance. With love comes forgiveness and acceptance. With love comes the ability to say, hey, you don't have to agree with me and I can respect you for that. And, and can you respect me for that? And go, yeah, there's more than enough room for different opinions. There's more than enough rooms, dare I say, for different religions. We don't all have to believe the same thing. In my knowledge, what I believe to be true for myself is that it's all about the same thing at the end of the day, whatever you might call it. My two filters that are always in place are, one, with harm to none, and secondarily, treat others as you'd like to be treated. If those two things are in place for me, then, whatever your belief system is, it's good with me because those are the most important things. So
That's
I think
beautiful.
That answered it, maybe.
It did. I think somewhere in there was the answer. So I love it. So is there a moment in your life of just the transformation of Deborah to where you knew you were in your lane, you were in the right moment at the right time, and now you're doing what you're doing? Like, what was there one moment, or is it a gradual transformation?
There are many moments, and it is ongoing, not necessarily gradual. I have definitely had some pretty harsh things happen in my reality that taught me a lot. And got a plane going overhead there. It's a little noisy all of a sudden. But because I am a work in progress, I just, I get to that place, like a sweet spot, like this conversation for me right now is just such a sweet spot. It's a part where I just go, yeah, see, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. This is awesome. And so for me, it's a lot of those moments. I had a pretty significant event happen about 2.5 years ago now, where I got run off the road at 75 miles an hour. I was a passenger. I was in my friend's car, and I will say my friend is very non-materialistic, which is, a nice way of saying that their car was not in the best of shape. And, we got run off the road and we got run right into the woods, and we ran over a bunch of saplings, and thank God for that, because it slowed the car down to probably about 65, and hit an embankment all on my side of the car. So in fact, it ripped the entire bottom of the car out. I have not looked at a photo because it was a horrible experience, but it was also an incredibly transcendental experience. I had to have a lot of things told to me because I have no idea really what happened until the driver was able to tell me kind of what happened. We had two very different experiences. And I really thought I was dead. And it's not the first time I've confronted death, but I really thought I was done. I mean, I couldn't figure out why we were moving so fast through the woods. It was just like, uh-oh. And it was not fun. And I was like, no, this is wrong. This is not the way it's supposed to go. And there was no peace. There was no light. There was no choir going or nothing. It was literally a voice that tore up from the very bottom of my soul that literally said, I haven't done what I came here to do yet. And then I remember the impact. And when I realized I was still alive, I called the angels right away and then went through what I went through. And it took me down. I was injured. I was hurt. However, in that moment, I realized for myself that those are never going to be my last words. And I knew that part of what I'm here to do is what I'm in the throes of doing now. I had to recover. I've had to go through a few things, but it's like I am meant to be leading a consciousness movement at this time. And every time I step aside from that, it doesn't make sense. I lose the threads. It just doesn't make sense. Then I have to step back into the flow and think, okay, this feels better. And then I step aside. It's an intimidating vision. I get intimidated by it. And it's silly that I get intimidated by it, because I know that if you just trust and step into the thing that's calling you, that everything will take care of itself. I've experienced it before. And at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. Wait a minute. I'm not sure. Is that, how do I, and then I overthink it. Then I come back. So that's what I mean. It's like, I have known from the day that I can remember ever thinking, what am I meant to do? I have had this vision of talking to this crowd that was literally as far as I could see. And I was dressed in white and I was on a stage, and I've seen that forever. Now, between the moment I first saw that and now, and all the steps to get there, I can't tell you. I haven't necessarily seen all of the steps, but one by one and level by level, I've been slowly getting there. So it's moments like this when I hear that grace just sort of get triggered inside of me, that I know, yes, this is the right place to be.
I love it. I love it. Well, you mentioned technology. Well, technology has really opened the door for us to get our voices out there. Uh-huh. And as a podcaster, as Mr. The Podcast Whisperer, you also are starting a podcast. It's called What If I Ran the World? Just tell me a little bit about that.
What if I ran the world? Well,
I love the name.
I am, like I said, I'm in this beginning phase of starting. I've always been doing this work, but it's now time to start a movement. And the whole point was like, well, how do I used to do talk radio, and I had a show called Global Light Wave, Your Wake Up Call. And it was from the political to the metaphysical, we explore. And that was a great fun show to do, because it was from the political to the metaphysical. We explored all these things. We talked politics. We talked all sorts of stuff. And it was live call-in, which I love. And it was a blast to do. And it was like, I look at what's happening in the world today and I go, okay, how can we bring things to the table but not dwell on what's not working. Like, we can talk about it because I think it's important that people realize, oh, this is actually happening, or that is actually happening. Because as much as we try to be informed, we're not really given access to a lot of information. So we're only informed on certain things, and we're not informed on a lot of other stuff. So I wanted something that was going to inform people. But more importantly than that, I wanted to say, okay, well, what if I ran the world? And if I have a guest, well, what if you ran the world? Like, how would you do this differently? So that people could begin to understand, like, there's a lot of different ways we could do it. And not only that, but that we have the consciousness, we have the capacity, we have the intelligence, we have everything we need to create life the way that we would like to create it. And if we can begin to collaborate on that, you know, wherever two or more are gathered, right? And then what about 200? What about 200,000? What about 2 million? Like, what could we really do? And so the whole point of the show was to be able to put that onto a platform and say, okay,
love it.
You know, if you don't like it, that's great. How would you do this differently? Let's come up with some kind of a game plan.
I love it. I love it. Well, Deborah, thank you so much for being here today. I'm just, what a great, I looked and I'm like, wow, that went by fast. So thank you for being here and just shedding your light. You're absolutely beautiful soul. If you'd like to reach out to Deborah, she's available at welcometobishopworld.com. She's also on social media. And I just really want to say thank you for being here on Life Transformation Radio.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you, Rob. I look forward to when we speak again.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your support and taking time out of your busy and precious day to listen to Life Transformation Radio. We so appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me, along with my very special guest, Deborah Bishop, to touch your heart, move your soul, and inspire you to live a life of transformation. I'm Rob Actis. Until next time.
This is Life Transformation Radio. Download complete.